Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Holy Donuts podcast. I'm your host, Matt Lombardi, joined today with Seth Hinz. Seth is the Director of Brand and Marketing for Lutheran Bible Translators. Based in St. Louis, you are, at least Seth, where's Lutheran Bible Translators, like where's home base for them? Is it St. Louis as well?
So it's about 3 hours west of St. Louis, smack dab in the center of Missouri, Concordia, Missouri.
Yes, Concordia, Missouri. Okay, gotcha. Well, thanks for joining me today, man. Really excited to hop in and hear a little bit more about your story and some of your experience working with ministries.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I am born and raised Lutheran, came up through Lutheran Church, Missouri. And my dad's a pastor, grandpa's a pastor, uncles are pastors. And so I was just in it from the very beginning. Came up through the grade schools, the high schools, and eventually one of the universities. And I've just been living and breathing it ever since. Pretty early on, knew that I wasn't going to be one of those pastors. But, I recently had to think back of like what was one of those pivotal moments in your life. And I can only ever recall vivid memories of my dad being in the pulpit and just making eye contact with every person in the church. And I was just like, my dad is passionate about this and he loves people. And, seeing we've sat at gas stations for an hour just because he struck up conversations with people inside. And I was like, oh my gosh, seeing him be up in the pulpit and then walk the talk out in the community was just okay, something here is meaningful. He loves sharing Jesus, and whatever I can do to help the church, to help ministries, I'm going to do that. And so that really shaped a lot of my life and my career.
That's awesome, man. And so how long have you been with Lutheran Bible Translators?
I just started last February, so a little under a year now. So
February. Before that, you were doing some marketing stuff, right? From the LinkedIn internet sleuthing I did.
Yes. Yeah. My full CV over there. Yeah. So I started as a web media director, came up doing some copy stuff for one of our Lutheran universities, ended up working for a district for the Lutheran Church, which is like a diocese regional thing up in Michigan. And I did 8.5 years there. And so it was during that time where we were helping about 300 plus churches up there that I realized we are totally equipped to care for people. We are under-equipped to reach people and connect with people in the digital space.
Yeah.
And it was about in that time period where I realized I really need to lean in here and I need to help churches. I need to work one-on-one with them. And the more I'm at the district, I'm existing more and more in theory. And so I really needed to get to the ground floor, the front lines. And so during that time, my wife, Rachel, and I, we were praying about, okay, what's next? What are we supposed to do? And we took a call to a church down in St. Louis, and that's what brought us here. And so for 4.5 years, I was working with one of the larger churches in the Lutheran Church, taking them through a name change, but then also marketing strategies and trying to reach out to the community in new ways. And so that's really what got me started down this road that eventually led me to LBT. But yeah, I would say it was during that transition time that I also started looking for something that was more repeatable, something that made more sense to me when it came to marketing and communication.
Yeah.
And that led me to StoryBrand, which I know some folks have talked about on the podcast before. And so when I found that, I eventually had to keep going. And in 2019, I became a guide and then was a guide up until last year. And so now I'm just living and breathing it for Lutheran Bible Translators.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. And there is that, I think, instinct for a lot of folks who are in church comms, which is awesome. But if you're anything like I was when I was doing church comm stuff, it feels like everything you create is a one-off project. It's like, okay, cool. We created this one time and now we put that on the shelf and I'll never use that again. Right. Whereas when you're working with a ministry that touches a lot of other ministries, you can create something one time and, oh, well, now this becomes a repeatable rhythm. Or if you're doing, working on marketing for donor communications or outreach or campaigns, when you create something, okay, now I've created something that this is an engine, right? That we can keep running back over and over again, as opposed to, all right, we did all that work for 6 weeks and now on to the next thing. And so totally understand that.
Yep.
Yeah. You spoke a little bit more about being able to do some of the strategy stuff. Are there some strategies, or whether it's specific campaigns or principles, that you've taken to Lutheran Bible Translators that have really helped you guys kind of take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think story is the whole thing. I know we're going to talk about trends and stuff like that coming up, but Lots of ministries and nonprofits I know are aware of story and the
Yeah.
approach of story brand. A lot of
Yeah.
them don't know how to necessarily translate that to the nonprofit space.
Mm.
So we've got 136 programs going on around the world right now. And what's a change from maybe when we first started is we started as a missionary organization we were sending people from America over internationally to start programs, keep programs going, get the translations going, and all that. What's been happening over the past 10 years and plus is this transition to the local
Yeah.
team taking ownership and driving the
Yeah.
project forward, and Lutheran Bible translators stepping back to a consultant role. And so, what's important about that when it comes to story, and really for any ministry, is we have to make sure that we're telling the story in a way that the main character of the story is not us, it's not what we're doing, it's the people that we're serving and what
Yeah.
they want. And so, if you're familiar with story brand, you really have to spend a lot of time thinking about who your beneficiaries are and what it
Yeah.
is that they want out of life, what it is that they're trying to accomplish that you can support through your ministry or nonprofit.
Yeah.
And what you need to spend time on is not framing it in a things aren't going to happen if we don't do anything.
Yeah.
You really have to spend on time and say, are we affirming dignity? Are we
Mm.
spending time and saying these people have full lives, they're fully capable of all these
Yeah.
things, but we can help accelerate that
Mm.
and we can help come alongside and keep shape for it
Yeah.
because of our experience. We've been doing this translation thing for 60 years now, so we can provide some insight, but
Yeah.
the most ownership and the way it's going to drive and be successful is if the local team owns it. And
Yeah.
so whichever ministry you're in, whether you're in ours or not, you have to spend time talking about their story and about what God's word is going to mean for them in their lives. And even having a step before that, a lot of these languages don't have a written language. They're
Yeah.
existing in oral languages. And so a lot of them don't think they can even have a written language
Mm.
because how does that even work? And so
Yeah.
being able to walk alongside them and start to work through that process and show them that actually your language can be preserved and put in the written form, they see a brand new sense of empowerment and
Yeah.
again that dignity of just saying like this, we matter enough to somebody across the world that they would come in and walk alongside with us in order to preserve our heritage, our traditions, who we
Yeah.
are, and really honor the language. And so, if anything, I would just say when you're telling stories, are you affirming people's dignity that you're serving and telling their story well? And so that's what we spend a
Yeah.
lot of time on.
Yeah. And this is interesting to me because it's like you have your beneficiaries, but then how do you help in some ways tell the story and educate your donors, right? The benefactors, I guess it might be,
Sure, sure.
on why that sort of dignity based approach is the right way to do it, right? Like why we do ministry in this way, why we don't just say, yeah, we'll come and do all the work for you. Can you speak a little bit more to how you educate the donors on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we do is we tell their story and we there's a certain part of the story where the donor actually comes in.
Yeah.
We try to tell a story of they are fully capable. They can do this thing. Here's why they want it. Here's the problems that they're facing that's keeping them from
Yeah.
getting it. Here's where they're looking for a consultant to come in, and this is where we have experience. And here's what the process is going to look like. And once you get through that part of the story, that's when we say we can turn to the donor and say, you have an opportunity to one, pray for these people, two, now that you see their story, if you donate to that, if you donate to this particular project, this is the specific problem that you're going to be helping to
Yeah.
address. And you're going to be helping them not just with an influx of money, but you're going to be helping them buy the materials that they need. You're
Yeah.
going to help buy the computers, the
Right.
printers, all the different things so that yes, they can do it, but you're going to help accelerate that. And out of that, they're going to have God's word. They're going to have a
Yep.
written language. They're going to have the power of being able to hold God's word in their own language and not
Yeah.
have to lean on anybody else. And being able to have that access is going to give people just the sense of hope of life. And it's really going to help transform people's lives. And so when
Yeah.
people can see that I can help that story progress, without stripping anybody of their dignity.
Yeah.
That's how we make the connection.
Massive. That's massive. I love that, man. Well, hey there, Holy Donuts listeners. Ever feel like your nonprofit's donor experience is like a jelly-filled donut with no jelly? Well, don't fret. We found the jelly to your donut dilemma. Enter WeGive, the software tool that's like the cream filling to your eclair, or should I say the glaze to your donut. With WeGive, you're not just taking a donation, you're rolling out a red carpet for every person who gives to your organization. And with WeGive, you get an incredible donor portal, events, pledges, surveys, segmentation, on and on we could go on the features. And those checkouts, though, smoother than my attempt to make homemade donuts, which let's just say didn't quite rise to the occasion. See what I did there? With WeGive's innovative engagement tools, your donors won't just feel the love, they'll be coming back for a second. Because nothing says thanks for your dough better than a world-class experience. So if you want to sprinkle some extra special magic on your donor relationships, check out WeGive.com. So as you look out and you see like your framework for storytelling that you guys have used at Lutheran Bible Translators, are there trends that you see in Christian nonprofit land that are concerning to you, and then maybe some that are exciting to you?
Yeah. So the one that maybe I'm nervous about, because maybe some of you have sent these to me, I don't know. So I really struggle, and this is me personally, I really struggle with getting a mailer near the end of year that is full color, beautiful envelope, beautiful materials in the inside, but then it like is very shock value verbiage and how you're phrasing things. And it's like, if this person doesn't get $12, they're going to face maybe even certain, like
certain death, right?
Yeah,
like
certain death.
And it's just, I have a whole swipe folder of them, like file cabinet here that I collect.
And I'm just like, every time I receive one of those, I hold it up and I'm like, why did you send this to me? That person is like on the verge of death, and like, you're sending me this material. Don't spend $3 to send me this thing. Clearly this is an emergency. And so when I see that kind of like shock value and everything's an emergency, it's red flags for me to say, like, you're not really telling me the real story, because if that was the real story, you wouldn't be spending $3 per envelope on this thing. Right. And so I feel like that shock value starts to wear people down, and eventually it may work for a few campaigns, but eventually people are going to get exhausted on that. And so if we all continue to do that, kind of just like emergency, 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 eventually the donor base across the board is going to start to say, I don't know if I can handle it anymore. It's too much. Yeah. And so I think I was
going to say, it hooks you on the donor acquisition cycle too, right? Because if you're constantly churning through them, you're not retaining those people. One of the things, like one of the kind of platitudes that we like to say for our clients and for us internally is like, how you get them is how you keep them. And so if you get them with shock value, then you inevitably have to shock them more and more into ever actually continuing to give, which is just not a long-term play for donor retention. And, if everyone's doing that, you can just imagine what kind of a toxic cycle that pulls. So 100%, like, it's got to be something that's like that shock value. I'm right there with you. I collect those files for a reason, because I want to be able to say, hey, can we not do this anymore?
Can we not do this? Yeah. Yeah, and so do I. So I have like a pile over on my desk right here. It's like, gosh. And it's a reminder to me, like, it's not about the emergency, it's the dignity and it's the process. And we can walk along people and make an impact. So on the flip side, one of the positive things I see was really born out of the GoFundMe and Kickstarter and all that. What I see for the next generation, I think we all see that, is they want specific like impact. They want to know exactly where their dollars are going. And what that is forcing us to do as fundraisers is tell very specific stories about and break things down. Because when you say, well, you're giving to a fund that's $400,000, people are like, great, but I'm just like throwing a penny in there, basically. So what that forces us to do is break those things down, so that and we've had to do this in a few of our campaigns, but break it down from 200,000 down to like that 2,000 to 10,000 range. And then specifically say, when you give $2,000, it gives this. And then you can like, is this computer? See this
Right.
person building this computer?
This is
That
it.
thing.
Yeah.
And so people really want to see the direct impact of their dollars. To make that percentage thing on GoFundMe, Kickstarter go
Yeah.
from 75% to 77%.
They want to see it, the
So,
needle actually move. Yeah.
yeah. And so they want to see that they're making the needle move. And they can't do that if all of our campaigns are $1 million. And so we have
Yeah.
to break things down and get more specific, get more personalized. And so I love that it's forcing us to be more
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah, totally. Along with that, one of the things that we see with that a lot is, agreed with you 100%. There are challenges, obviously, in like the implementation of that, right? Like the more campaigns you have to do, the more of that, like
Right.
the more individualized you're trying to make the donor process, the more complexity, right? Because if you throw everyone into a big bucket, it's easy on your marketing team. It's just one email sequence, it's one direct mailer. If you want to do it specific, now all of a sudden we have, maybe 30 different micro campaigns running, and sometimes our infrastructure isn't designed for that. So any thoughts on like how you build an infrastructure that would allow you to actually do more personalized campaigns for donors?
Yeah, what we've done is that we, like end of year, everybody has lapsed donors. We decided to not do everybody, but to start working in different ways. So we broke down a group of, thousands of people down to, okay, we're going to try to reach these 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And so when we were able to start segmenting and down to that, we were very specific on our criteria. Within 3 years, they live maybe in this area. And we just said, okay, we're going to make it very specific for this group. We're not going to we don't have the capacity to do that for everybody. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to reactivate some people who cared about this ministry at one point and may have just fallen off the radar. And so we spent time just building out. We have our large campaigns, but we built out one campaign. And so instead of shifting to fifth gear, we said we're going to shift into first gear. And so for this lapse campaign, we got very specific on the technology that we were helping to fund. We have this one fund that equips new missionaries and translation teams with computers and pays for printers. And we had used all of our granting for 2023, and we need to rebuild it for 2024. When you give this, it leads to this. And so we were able to be very specific. We made it specific from our end too. So it wasn't from Lutheran Bible Translators. It was from our director of development. She has a face. We tied, she was the one that ended up sending all the emails from her. So we accompanied that. We had a video shot with her, specifically making the plea out to those people. And so not only are you connecting with a specific cause where you can see where the dollars are going, but you have a real face to it too. So we're trying to strip away all kind of it's just this large unknown organization where a bunch of people work. We're trying to make it very specific.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, we had a donor come along and say, we'll do a matching gift on that. And so when all those things combined, we were able to shift into first gear and say, if we were to do this, what is it going to look like?
Yeah.
And so I think what scares me a lot, and probably what scares some other folks, is like, how do we get to this big point where everything's personalized? And I think the key for us really is just starting with one. If we did this, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing. We're starting real slow and scale from there.
I love it. Yeah. You just start where you can, right? It's,
Yep.
Hey, let's get started. Let's not use the bigness of it as an excuse to not take action. Just start with a place where we can start, and we'll move from there. And we'll figure out the problems as they come up, right? Like that's all you can do is just keep taking a step forward. So are there any resources out there that you love to recommend to other people in kind of nonprofit land, in the marketing roles, donor engagement roles?
Yes, absolutely. So of course, StoryBrand. That's what I've been talking about this whole way through. There's two other ones. So we're in a series, or a season, I should say, of system building at our organization. And one of the system approaches that I love is duct tape marketing. They have a 7-step small business approach, and it really easily translates over to what we're doing in the nonprofit world. And so I'll rattle those off real quick.
Yeah.
So website, number one, website that builds trust, content platform, blogging, podcasts, all that good stuff. SEO, search engine optimization, social media, reputation management, email marketing, and then your pay-per-click advertising, your digital marketing. And so if you're looking to say, like, what systems do I need to have in place? These are really the systems
Those
that you
big
need to
ones.
be working on. And reputation management has recently been impactful for us. And so that's going on to Candid or GuideStar, however they want to be referred to right now,
Yep.
and making sure that your profile's as up to date as possible, having a recent
Yep.
video. We had somebody go through who was recently looking for, I want to donate to Bible translation, but I don't necessarily know which one.
Yeah.
And so we had been working on reputation management, and they were able to make a decision based on some of the stuff that we had put
That's
up
huge.
there. And so we had a donor who was not on our radar kind of take a step because we had our reputation management taking steps forward.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
duct tape marketing, look at those 7 systems. If you're unsure where to start, it's a place to start.
That's awesome. Those are great resources. And so if folks want to connect with you, if they want to reach out, learn more about Lutheran Bible translators,
Yeah.
what's the best way to do that? Are you active on social, email? What's the best way?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Seth Hinz, and then you could connect with me on Facebook. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So I'm on all the platforms, but LinkedIn's probably the best way right now.
Awesome. Man, Seth, thank you so much for joining me today. I learned a ton. I know everyone listening is as well. And really, really excited to see the ways that people are able to take what you talked about and implement this with their nonprofit. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt.